we all needed to take a breath. You know, we needed a moment to breathe. It's not lost on me that George Floyd didn't get that moment, you know, but we did, and we took it, and the players took it, and they got to refocus on the things that they wanted to focus on outside of their jobs. At the end of the day, it's not the NBA's job to solve the world. It's the NBA's job to be part of the world.
Welcome back to The Jump. That was, of course, Doc Rivers on the news of the day. The NBA playoffs will officially resume on Saturday. So to revisit our top story, after 2 straight days without games and before a third, the NBA and NBA Players Association have released a joint statement. Here are some of the main points in addition to the games resuming. The NBA is agreeing to form a social justice coalition in partnership with the players. Team governors, that means team owners, will work with local officials to convert as many arenas as possible into voting centers. Now, this had already happened in a couple cities around the NBA. The Kings, the Bucks, the Hawks have been working to do this already, but now all of the rest of the teams will be working to do this as well. The league will also promote voting information through advertising during the playoffs. So, Kendrick, what do you think about these commitments made by the league? Do they feel to you like they are addressing some of the action points you have been asking for, frankly, for months now in terms of team ownership?
Absolutely. I mean, Rachel, we can't change racism, right? That's been around for 400 years. But the things I've told you that I wanted to see change, that we got control of, especially the NBA players when they relate it to the ownership, is changing in the system. How we do that? Changing by voting, using our owners that have the power as white Americans that have those relationships, like I said before. So, you know, I'm pleased with all those demands, and now we just got to make sure that we hold their feet to the fire and that they get them done.
Ramona, what do you think of this action plan?
Well, you know, Rachel, I think what was so interesting to me about this statement and how this has evolved over the last 48 hours is how collective the owners had to be in this, because you know that not all owners in the NBA have the same political beliefs as their players. There are a lot of owners that donate money to Republican candidates that are definitely against some of the positions the players might be taking. And the fact that they can speak collectively and say, yes, these are things that we can commit to is a pretty big deal. And, you know, Renee Montgomery was one of the players from the Atlanta Dream that I talked to in reporting that story on Senator Loeffler. And she said, you know, what's been interesting for her is she had an event on Juneteenth at Centennial Park in Atlanta, and the coach showed up, the team president showed up. She felt a lot of support from the organization. She didn't hear anything from the owners. And it used to not be a big deal. Like it used to be, you didn't know where owners stood politically. You didn't really look into who they donated money to or what causes they supported. Now it's all out in the open. And I think players are looking to see which owners step forward and say something, which owners help them enact some of the causes that they care about and exert the pressure that they want socially. And, you know, I think back just a couple of years ago, the NBA did an anti-gun violence spot. Do you remember that?
I do.
And it was not shown to the owners beforehand. It was done because it was important to players, and they simply released the spot. And it was done, you know, because if they would have shown it to the owners and asked them, do you agree with this? Should we do this? They might have got some objections. They just put it out there and did it. Look how far we've come since then.
No, absolutely. And I am curious, and Kendrick, you've talked about this a lot, the idea that NBA players have access to billionaires that, frankly, the rest of us don't have. And so Ramona mentions there are some ownership groups that have different political agendas than their players. Would you encourage someone like your friend Russell Westbrook or James Harden to get Tillman Fertitta on the phone for a meeting? Do you think that's the point where players are at right now, where they're going to specifically speak to the owners of their teams?
Absolutely. And when you look at guys like James Harden and Russell Westbrook, they have a great relationship with their owner. And look, I'm willing to bet 2 of the franchises that I played for are going to be 2 of the franchises that step foot forward first. And that's going to be the Boston Celtics with Wick Grousbeck and Steve Pagluga, and Oklahoma City Thunder with Mr. Clay Bennett. All three of those guys, both of those organizations are great organizations that care about their players and not only talk about it, but they step forward. And I guarantee you there are going to be two of the organizations and two of the ownership groups that are going to be first to step forward.
Well, Ramona's right. This is just a fascinating evolution of this partnership. We will be continuing seeing where it goes.